Bed. 2 hours later, Mom texted, help him or skip the holidays. I blocked everyone that night. By morning, 53 missed calls and a Venmo request from my sister. I never thought a text from my deceased mother's phone number could hit me like a punch to the gut. But when it landed, an ultimatum disguised as a plea, I knew my family had just declared war. And I was ready to fight back. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been sitting across from my brother, Caleb, at my kitchen table, watching his smug smile as he dropped a passive-aggressive bomb. That was just the beginning of the end. I'm Ethan, 33, single, a software engineer. And apparently, the designated family villain because I wouldn't torch my future to save theirs. But we'll get to that. I'm the youngest of 3. My sister, Chloe, 37, is a nurse, 2 kids, always struggling. Then there's my brother, Caleb, 39. The golden child. Athlete, charmer, the one mom and dad would move mountains for. Me? I was the quiet one, the nerd as Caleb called me. Loved books, good at solving problems, unless those problems involved our family's emotional landmines. Our parents died 2 years ago, 6 months apart. Dad, a heart attack. Mom, she just gave up after. I was the one who handled everything, funerals, paperwork, the will. When it came to splitting things, it was a mess. A house, some savings, Dad's investment portfolio. Nothing crazy, but solid. Caleb wanted the house. Chloe wanted cash for her mortgage. I just wanted things fair. That didn't happen. Caleb insisted on the house, promising to buy us out with money he didn't even have. Chloe took her share in cash. I ended up with assets. Dad's portfolio, which I actually managed to grow. Fast forward to last month. Caleb never bought us out. He'd refinanced the house twice, piled up debt, and then, in a move so ridiculously Caleb, he blew his last bit of inheritance on a brand new, stupidly expensive red V8 sports car. Midlife crisis on wheels. I actually laughed when I heard. I couldn't help it. It was so him. So, imagine my shock when he showed up uninvited at my apartment in Atlanta last weekend, looking like he'd just lost everything in Vegas. Chloe was with him, kids in tow, like it was some family intervention in my living room. I should have known when they both showed up with Starbucks. Must be nice being rich while we're drowning in bills, Caleb said, flopping onto my couch like he owned it. That's how it started. I just blinked. What? You heard me, he grinned, but there was no humor in his eyes. While we're struggling, you're sitting on Dad's gold mine. It's not a gold mine, I said, my voice steady. It's a retirement plan. And you had your share. Yeah, and I used it, he scoffed. Things are tough right now. Rates, gas, food, everything's through the roof. We could use some help. I repeated, glancing at Chloe. She just stared at her coffee cup. Caleb leaned forward. Look, I know we've had our differences, but we're family. You're in a position to help. You've always been the smart one, the saver. You don't even have kids. What are you hoarding it all for? I just stared, genuinely speechless. The audacity. The sheer lack of self-awareness. I'm not hoarding anything, I finally managed. I'm just not bailing you out for your bad choices. That's when he muttered it, low, almost under his breath, but loud enough. Must be nice being rich while we're drowning in bills. I didn't even respond. I just stood up, walked to the door, and held it open. Chloe looked conflicted, like she wanted to say something, but instead, she just herded her kids out, mumbling, thanks for the coffee. Like it was a casual visit, not an ambush. Caleb walked out last, that same smug grin back on his face. You'll come around, he said, like I was the unreasonable one. 2 hours later, my stomach dropped. A text from Mom's old number. It felt like a ghost reaching through the phone. But it wasn't her. It was Chloe. She'd saved Mom's contact, using it to try and guilt me. Help him out, it read. Or, don't bother visiting for the holidays. I stared at it for a long time. It was a gut punch. Not just the ultimatum, but the sickening way they weaponized grief. Like saying, Mom would have wanted this. Even though Mom never once asked me to clean up their messes. I didn't reply. I just blocked the number. Then I blocked Chloe. Then Caleb. That night, my phone went silent. I went to bed early, feeling this strange mix of guilt, anger, and, if I'm honest, a fragile peace. Like I'd finally drawn a line. I wasn't their bank. I wasn't their scapegoat. I wasn't their punching bag. But when I woke up the next morning, 53 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and the kicker, a Venmo request from my sister. $2,000 for Caleb's car payment. Don't be selfish. That's when it hit me. They weren't just desperate. They were entitled. And they weren't going to stop. Not unless I made them. You'd think, after 53 missed calls, being told not to come home for the holidays, being branded selfish for not paying for a car I didn't buy, I'd be furious. But I wasn't. Not at first. That morning, coffee mug in hand, watching my phone screen light up with endless notifications, I just felt tired. Not sleepy, but a bone-deep weariness, like I'd been carrying a hidden weight for years and only just realized it. I didn't open the voicemails. I ignored the Venmo requests. I didn't even bother checking who was calling. I already knew. And I had nothing to say. Not yet. I got dressed, went to work, sat through meetings, squinted at code. All while the calls and messages kept piling up. By lunch, it was 68 missed calls for more Venmo demands, each more insulting than the last. One even had a waving emoji with TikTok, Ethan, TikTok. Like I was on a countdown, like they were threatening me. That's when the switch flipped. You know that moment? When the fog lifts. When every memory, every injustice, every slight you ever swallowed rushes forward like a freight train, and suddenly, you're just done. That was me. It wasn't just the car. It wasn't even the money. It was decades. A lifetime of playing second fiddle to Caleb, of being told to be the bigger person, of biting my tongue to keep the peace. And now they were painting me as the villain because I wouldn't burn my financial future for people who never respected me? No, not this time. That night, I called Chloe. Not for reconciliation, but for answers. She picked up on the first ring, like she'd been waiting, phone glued to her hand. Ethan, she said, her voice already sharp with exasperation. Finally. Why are you using Mom's number to text me? I asked, calm, direct. She didn't miss a beat. Because you never respond to anything else. I figured it would get your attention. It got my attention, I said. It also felt manipulative. Oh, please, she snapped. Must be nice living rich while we struggle with bills, my brother sneered after wasting his inheritance on a new car. I told him, you made your being dramatic. You told me not to come home for Christmas. She scoffed. Well, maybe if you acted like family. Like family? I cut in. You mean send Caleb money so he can keep driving around in that toy he bought with his second mortgage? It's not a toy. He needs that car to get to work. What work, Chloe? Last I heard, he quit his job at the dealership because they didn't respect him. A long silence. He's trying, Ethan. No, I said. He's failing. Repeatedly. And you're enabling it. Both of you are. She exploded then. Oh, get off your high horse. Not everyone had it easy like you. I actually laughed. Easy? You think I had it easy? You think working 60-hour weeks in my 20s to afford night classes and pay rent, while Caleb lived at home rent-free was easy? Or watching Mom and Dad cover his bills while telling me I was too independent for my own good? Silence again. I could practically hear her fuming. You've always been jealous of him, she said quietly. That one stopped me cold. Jealous. I repeated. You hate that Mom and Dad loved him more. There it was. The truth. The thing I'd suspected for years, but no one had ever dared say it aloud. And Chloe said it like it was a fact. Like I was just some petty little brother, still chasing approval. I don't hate it, I said slowly. I accepted it a long time ago. What I hate is being punished for not being the failure. She didn't respond. I'm done, I told her. No more texts, no more calls. I'm not your safety net. And I hung up. That should have been the end of it. But of course, it wasn't. 2 days later, a bank notification popped up. Someone tried to log into my account. 3 failed attempts, then it locked them out. My heart hammered. I had 2-factor authentication, so nothing was breached, but still. Someone tried. It wasn't a coincidence. Then my email. Buried between newsletters, a password reset request. Not from me. I opened my laptop, went through my security logs. They didn't get far, but the IP address, it was familiar. Suspiciously familiar. I checked my saved locations. It was Athens, Caleb's town. I didn't want to believe it. Not really. But then I looked at my Venmo history and saw Chloe had sent herself $10 for me a week ago, just to test if I'd notice. It confirmed everything. They weren't just entitled. They were dangerous. They'd crossed a line. A part of me still hoped this was rock bottom. Maybe they'd back off. Take the hint. But no. A week later, I found a handwritten note taped under the peephole on my front door. Messy, angry scrawl. You're not better than us. Don't forget where you came from. No signature, but I didn't need one. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying every single time I'd let something slide. Every holiday where Caleb got the biggest slice of ham. Every birthday where Chloe gave me a half-hearted gift and expected praise. Every time I'd offered to help with bills, fix their laptops, babysit, lend a couch, drive them home, just smile through their passive-aggressive jabs. Then, a memory from years ago clicked into place, like a missing puzzle piece. Right after Dad died, we were in the lawyer's office, going over the will. The lawyer had asked if we'd all reviewed it. Chloe and Caleb nodded. I said I hadn't seen it. He looked surprised. Your brother and sister said they showed you the draft last month. I frowned. They didn't. Caleb jumped in. Oh, we must have forgotten. Sorry, man. At the time, grief had distracted me. But now I saw it. They'd reviewed the will before me. They knew about the clauses, the money, the stocks, the distribution. All of it. And now I wondered, what else did they see? Did they know about Dad's secondary trust account for emergencies? The one I had to jump through hoops to claim, thinking I was the only one who knew about it. Did they read the handwritten letter Dad wrote me, not typed, saying how proud he was? Did they resent it? The next morning, I called my lawyer. Something inside me had shifted completely. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was attempted fraud, harassment, and if I didn't do something, it would only get worse. I filed a report about the unauthorized Venmo transfer and the login attempts. Then I asked my lawyer to dig deeper into the estate documents. 2 days later, he called. You might want to sit down, he said. Apparently, weeks before Dad's passing, Caleb had tried to convince the estate manager to alter the will. Nothing major, just clarifying language. But the lawyer had flagged it as suspicious and rejected it. The version we all saw was the original. Untouched. But Caleb had tried. And the kicker? Chloe had signed off on it. Not only that, but my lawyer sent me a copy of the draft Caleb submitted. In it, my share of the portfolio was reassigned to a joint family emergency fund, with Caleb as the primary executive. If that change had gone through, I'd be broke right now. I stared at that draft, hands shaking. This wasn't just about entitlement anymore. This was pure, calculated betrayal. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about what I was going to do next. I felt focused, clear. Because now I had the evidence. And they had no idea what was coming. Rock bottom doesn't always hit with a bang. Sometimes it creeps in slowly, like a cold draft. You don't notice at first, until your fingers are numb and you realize the window's been open for days. That was me, about a month after the incident with the will. The betrayal, the lies, that draft document Caleb and Chloe tried to slip under the radar like a virus in code. I wasn't angry anymore, not with that fire in your chest rage. I was just hollow, detached. Like I'd stepped out of my own life and was watching it from a distance. I'd wake up, drag myself to work, pushing code around like it was just pixels and syntax. Eat something bland for dinner, scroll aimlessly through Netflix, and sleep, if you could even call it sleep. Some nights I'd stare at the ceiling fan for hours, replaying the last few months, a terrible rerun. Other nights, I'd dream about my parents. Vivid, strange dreams where they were alive but subtly off, like they knew something they weren't telling me. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the sheer weight of it. The crushing realization that for years I'd convinced myself I was part of something, a family. Only to find out I was the fallback plan. The wallet. The outsider, called selfish for not offering up my spine to be walked on. And then, the silence. The kind that fills the void after you've cut people off. No more birthday texts from Chloe. No more obligatory check-in hints from Caleb. Not even a "hey, are you alive?" from any cousins, aunts, uncles, most of whom had long ago picked sides in our family's invisible civil war. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. Loyalty in our family was always transactional. If you didn't offer something, money, sympathy, excuses, you weren't worth much. So yeah, that was the fall. Not a crash, but a quiet, lonely slide into numbness. But here's the thing about hitting bottom. You find out what's solid, what doesn't break. And slowly, agonizingly slowly, I started to realize something. I was still standing. Not because I was some stoic warrior, or had some grand epiphany. Honestly, it started with something small. Stupid, even. A houseplant. My coworker, Maya, who sat 2 desks away, gifted me a snake plant for my birthday. Low maintenance, she said. Like you. I chuckled, took it home, stuck it on my windowsill. A week later, it was still alive. 2 weeks, still green. A month? Thriving. I hadn't kept anything alive in years. But this little plant, it didn't need much. Just a bit of sun, a sip of water. And it grew, quietly, persistently. Kind of like me. That was the first shift. Then came the gym. I'd never been a fitness guy. Caleb was always the athletic one. But something about the silence in my Atlanta apartment, the lack of distraction, the emptiness, it made me restless. So, one night around 10 p.m., I grabbed my old sneakers and walked to the 24-hour gym nearby. I didn't go in planning some Rocky-style training montage. I just got on the treadmill and walked. 15 minutes. Then 20. Then a light jog. The next night, I did it again. And again. Soon, it became my new ritual. An hour on the treadmill, a few sets on the weight machines. Nothing extreme. Just motion. Breath. Reclaiming control over my own body. Week by week, I started feeling lighter. Not physically at first, but mentally. The static in my brain began to fade. I started sleeping again. Deep, dreamless sleep that left me clearer in the mornings. I ate better, less takeout, more cooking. Seriously, if you haven't tried pan-searing salmon with garlic butter, do it. Life-changing. And then, maybe 2 months into this quiet rebuild, something unexpected happened. My boss pulled me into a private Zoom meeting. Ethan, she said, smiling that cautious way managers do when they're about to drop news. I've been reviewing your work over the past quarter. You've really leveled up lately. I blinked. Oh, your code's cleaner. Your problem-solving is sharper. Your last security audit caught a bug that saved us weeks of backtracking. We're moving you to lead on the new back-end migration. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't even realized anyone noticed. Oh, she added, and we're bumping your salary. 20% raise. I smiled. A genuine smile. Thanks. But inside, I was stunned. While Caleb was defaulting on loans and Chloe was sending passive-aggressive Venmo requests, I had quietly climbed out of the hole they'd thrown me into and built something stronger, something mine. And yet, the part of me that had grown up in their shadow, the part that still half expected to be shamed for winning, couldn't quite celebrate. Not until the wedding invite arrived. Yes, a wedding. Not Caleb's, not Chloe's. One of our second cousins. Someone I barely knew, but saw once a year at awkward Thanksgiving gatherings. The kind of person who'd always say, "Hey man, we should hang out sometime," and then never follow up. The invite came in a thick, cream-colored envelope with gold lettering. Very fancy. Very look how successful I am energy. But it wasn't the wedding itself that caught my attention. It was the RSVP list attached, and the fact that Chloe and Caleb were both on it. And the handwritten note from the bride at the bottom, "Would love to see you there, Ethan. Everyone's talking about how well you're doing. Would be great to catch up." I stared at that note for a long time. Everyone's talking. Interesting, because as far as I knew, no one had heard from me in months. Turns out, someone had. My LinkedIn profile, my GitHub projects, even a Medium post I'd written about software architecture had started gaining traction. I wasn't just rebuilding quietly anymore. I was rising. And they noticed. I RSVP'd, yes. Not to flaunt anything, but because I wanted to see, truly see, how they'd look me in the eye after everything. I started preparing. Not just my outfit, charcoal gray suit, black tie, sleek dress shoes that made me feel taller than my 5 feet 10 inches frame, but my mindset. I wasn't going to show up bitter. I wasn't going to throw their failures in their face. I was going to walk in like someone who had nothing to prove. And for the first time in years, that was true. A week before the wedding, a text came from an unknown number. It was Chloe. "Are you going to the wedding?" No small talk, just straight to the point. I didn't reply. 5 minutes later, another, "Please don't make a scene. It's not the time." Oh, so now she was worried I'd make a scene? Interesting. Still no response. Then, the night before the wedding, a Facebook message from Caleb, "We should talk before tomorrow." Things got out of hand. Let's just be cool. Cool? Like the time he tried to rewrite the will? Like the time he let Chloe threaten me with our dead mother's number? I ignored him too. And that silence? That was power. I didn't need revenge. Not yet. But I could feel the pieces aligning, the momentum shifting. And at that wedding, surrounded by people who once saw me as the quiet brother, the weird one, the nerd, I was going to show them just how wrong they were. Not with arrogance, but with presence. With poise. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't destruction. It's evolution. But of course, Caleb and Chloe wouldn't like that one bit. Especially when they realized what was really coming. They still had no idea how far I was willing to go. The wedding was held at a country estate just outside Atlanta. One of those sprawling places with manicured lawns, ivy-covered arches, and enough fairy lights to make your eyes ache. I arrived fashionably late, alone, walking up the gravel path in my tailored suit and polished shoes, hands tucked calmly into my coat pockets. The valet didn't even give me a second glance. For once, I blended into the world I'd quietly built, not the family I came from. The ceremony had already wrapped. The bride and groom were off taking photos in a sun-drenched garden, and guests were milling around the cocktail tables on the terrace, sipping wine, catching up. I felt the looks before I saw them. Those quick, half-second glances. The murmured recognition. A few people came up with polite smiles, asking what I'd been up to, vaguely commenting on how they'd heard things. I nodded, answered vaguely, and scanned the crowd. Then I saw them. Caleb and Chloe. Standing under a white tent near the champagne table. She wore a navy blue dress, a little too tight in the sleeves. He was in a suit that didn't quite fit right. Expensive, sure, but clearly borrowed or rented. He had that familiar, smug tilt to his chin, the one he always wore when he thought the room owed him something. They hadn't seen me yet. I took a breath, adjusted my cufflinks, and walked toward them. Chloe spotted me first. Her smile was brittle. She stepped forward like she might actually hug me, but I stopped short and offered a hand instead. She hesitated, then took it. "Ethan," she said carefully, like she was testing the word. "Nice night," I replied. Caleb didn't say anything at first. He just stared, an unreadable look on his face, as if he couldn't decide whether to play cool or play victim. Then he smirked. "You clean up well." I smiled. "I always did. You just never noticed." That landed harder than I expected. His smirk faltered. Chloe glanced between us like she was expecting fireworks. But I wasn't here to explode. Not yet. "I've got a table near the back," I said. "You two sitting with the family?" "Of course," Chloe chirped. "Front and center." "Of course." Still clinging to proximity like it meant something. We made a little small talk. Awkward, stilted, mostly for show, until the dinner bell rang. I excused myself and walked to my seat. I didn't touch the wine. I needed a clear head. Tonight wasn't just about presents. It was recon. Weddings are like intel gold mines. Everyone lets their guard down. And sure enough, over the next few hours, I learned more than I expected. From a tipsy cousin, I found out Caleb had been rejected for a business loan 2 weeks ago. Credit too low, collateral topped out. From another relative, I overheard that Chloe's husband had walked out 3 months ago. She'd been hiding it, claiming he was working nights. I kept smiling, nodding, soaking it all in. Because what they didn't realize was that I hadn't come to the wedding to mend bridges. I came to confirm what I already suspected. They were crumbling. And all I had to do was give them a gentle push. The next week, I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove to our childhood home in Athens. Not to visit, not to reminisce. To inspect. See, when Dad passed, Caleb had insisted on keeping the house. Claimed he wanted to keep it in the family. Said it would be his kids one day. He doesn't have kids. He promised to pay us our share. When he didn't, he talked us into letting him refinance to get things in order. Well, he refinanced twice, missed payments, and now the place was barely holding together. Cracked siding, overgrown lawn. A for sale sign stood half-fallen in the yard, like even the sign had given up. I parked across the street and just watched. No one came in. No one went out. The windows were dark. Then I pulled out my phone and called my friend Leo. He's a real estate agent who owed me a favor from years back when I built his firm's app for free. Remember that project I did for you? I asked. Leo laughed. Still the best client dashboard we've ever had. I'm calling in the favor. Name it. I want to know everything about 1221 Parkwood Lane in Athens. He whistled. That's your folks' old place, right? Used to be. Send me the mortgage details, liens, current listing agent, everything. You got it. Give me a day. While I waited on Leo, I turned to Chloe. Well, indirectly. I logged into a private Reddit account I hadn't used in years, found a couple of parenting subreddits, and searched her name. Nothing. Then her husband's name. Jackpot. Buried deep in a venting post from a user whose account had been inactive for months was a confession from a man whose wife's family treated him like a walking wallet. He didn't name Chloe, but the details lined up. 2 kids, the timing of the separation, the reference to her parasite brother. So, he had left, and she'd been lying about it. With that, I reached out to a private investigator. Not to dig up dirt, per se, just to confirm timelines, employment status, custody filings, debt trails. Because if I was going to pull the trigger on this, I needed to be absolutely sure. Every step, every move, I was building something. Not revenge in the dramatic movie sense. No loud confrontations, no screaming matches. I was setting a stage. And they wouldn't even realize they were standing on it. When Leo called back, he sounded breathless. You're not going to believe this, he said. Try me. Your brother listed the house $90,000 above market value. It's been sitting for months. He's rejected 3 offers. Why? Because, get this, he's trying to flip it. Did some cosmetic updates last year, ran out of money, and now he's banking on a desperate buyer who won't ask too many questions. I rubbed my eyes. And the mortgage? The balloon loan? His second refinance was interest only. Payments just jumped 70%. He's drowning, man. Exactly what I needed to hear. What about the deed? I asked. Leo hesitated. That's the weird part. He never took your names off it. I sat up straight. What? Your name and Chloe's are still on the title. It was never updated after probate. Legally, all 3 of you still co-own the property. That changed everything. If my name was still on that deed, Caleb couldn't sell a damn thing without my signature. He'd built his last lifeline on a foundation he didn't own. And now, I could pull the rug out from under him. But I wasn't done. I needed leverage on Chloe too. Something that would keep her from swooping in to mediate once Caleb started drowning. That's when the PI came through. A tidy little report, 8 pages long. Chloe was $37,000 in credit card debt, living paycheck to paycheck. Her husband had filed for full custody and wasn't answering her calls. The apartment she'd just moved into? Lease co-signed by their old babysitter because Chloe didn't meet the income threshold on her own. I filed all this away. Because soon, they were going to come knocking again. Desperate people always do. So, I prepared. I pulled my investments from passive index funds and reallocated some into short-term, high-liquidity accounts, ready to move at a moment's notice. I set up a trust under a shell name. I hired an estate lawyer to quietly begin drafting a motion to partition the property Caleb was squatting in. And then I waited. Just like I knew they would. The storm arrived the next week. Caleb called, blocked number, of course. I let it go to voicemail. Then came Chloe. Her message was breathless. Ethan, Caleb's in trouble. He could lose the house. He says you've got some legal claim on it. Please don't do this. Just call me. So now they knew. Good. But I didn't reply. Not yet. I wanted them to stew. To feel what it was like to be locked out of their own escape route. To sit in the same silence they'd left me in. Meanwhile, I kept preparing. Lining up calls with realtors. Quietly alerting the bank that I would not be authorizing a sale or refinance. Reviewing every clause in the will to ensure airtight leverage. And then I made one final call. To a podcast host. Not a huge name, but one with a decent following. A show about family, finance, inheritance, and the messes people leave behind. The host had once interviewed a friend of mine about estate issues and financial manipulation. I pitched him a story. No names, no locations, just a case study of what happens when the black sheep turns out to be the backbone and decides to stop being used. He loved it. We recorded the episode under pseudonyms. It went live a week later. And let's just say the timing was perfect. Because by then, Caleb was knocking at my door. Literally. And he was about to find out just how far I'd gone. But he still hadn't seen the final move. The one that would change everything and take everything he thought he had left. Caleb showed up at my door just before 9 p.m., wearing that same gray hoodie he used to wear in high school, back when he still thought he was invincible. He knocked like he didn't care if I answered, but he lingered, like he knew he had no other options. I let him stand there for a few more knocks before I opened the door. His smile was weak. Not smug, not charming. Just tired. And desperate. "Ethan," he said, his eyes darting behind me like he expected backup. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside without saying a word, gesturing to the couch. He sat, leaned forward, elbows on knees, just like he had at my place months ago. Only this time, the air was heavier. He looked smaller somehow, like the years of coasting were finally catching up to him. "Look, I know we've had our differences," he started. I stayed silent. "But things are really bad, man. The house. If I miss one more payment, they're taking it." I nodded, like I was listening. I was, but not in the way he hoped. I wasn't there to empathize. He rambled on about how the market tanked, contractors overcharged him, the bank moved the goalposts. Every excuse in the book. He never once admitted he'd messed up. "I just need time," he said finally. "That's all. Just don't block the sale, and I'll pay you back after the close. You'll get your third, maybe more." I smiled faintly, walked to my kitchen, poured 2 glasses of water, brought one to him. "You still think you're in charge, don't you?" Caleb blinked. "What? You think this is a negotiation? That you still hold the cards?" I took a sip. "But you don't, Caleb. You haven't for a while." He stiffened. "What are you talking about?" I reached into a drawer and pulled out a file folder, thick with documents, reports, screenshots. I tossed it onto the coffee table. "That's a full timeline of everything you and Chloe tried to do. The fake draft of the will, the mortgage issues, the Venmo scam, Chloe's little stunt with Mom's phone number, even the login attempts on my bank account." He didn't touch the folder. I leaned back, arms crossed. "See, Caleb, you thought you were running a hustle. That I'd always bail you out, this smart little brother who'd eventually cave. But I stopped playing that role." His jaw tightened. "What do you want?" I smiled. "There it is." I let the silence stretch before answering. "I want the house," I said. "All of it. You sign your share and Chloe's over to me. Clean. No money owed to either of you. I take over the mortgage. I fix it up. I sell it, or rent it, or burn it to the ground. Doesn't matter. It's mine." Caleb looked like I'd slapped him. "No way. Then you default," I said simply. "And lose it anyway. But instead of walking away clean, you get evicted. Your credit tanks. You get sued for damages and owe back taxes you can't pay. And Chloe? She gets dragged in too, because her name's still on the deed." Caleb's breath hitched. "You'd really do that to your own brother?" "You tried to steal from me," I said coldly. "Twice. You used Mom's death as leverage. You let Chloe guilt me while you burned through the inheritance. You tried to rewrite the will, Caleb." His eyes flickered. He knew I wasn't bluffing. I leaned forward. "But I'll make it easy. I've already drafted the quick claim deeds. All you have to do is sign. I'll handle the rest." And what if Chloe doesn't agree? I smirked. She already did. That part wasn't technically true yet, but earlier that day, I'd had my lawyer send her a letter. It included the PI report, her financials, her ex-husband's custody filings, screenshots from forums showing her rants about being abandoned, and a gentle reminder that her name on a failing mortgage meant she could be personally sued for breach of contract. Along with the letter was an offer: sign over the house to me in exchange for full release of liability and no public exposure. Her lawyer called back an hour later. She agreed. I slid the signed form across the table to Caleb. Just need yours now. He stared at the paper for a long time, then at me. You've changed, he said bitterly. No, I said. I just stopped pretending. He signed. Within a week, the house was mine. I didn't throw a party. I didn't brag online. I didn't even tell anyone else in the family. Instead, I got to work. I hired a real contractor, not Caleb's buddy who cut corners and left drywall unfinished. I poured a chunk of my savings into making the place livable again. Fixed the plumbing, rewired the entire kitchen, installed solar panels, ripped out the moldy carpet, and laid down hardwood that practically glowed in the sunlight. By the time I was done, the house didn't just look better, it felt better. Lighter. Like it had finally been freed from decades of rot, emotional and physical. And then I sold it. The market was up. Interest rates had leveled. I got 3 offers in the first week, all above asking. When the deal closed, I sat on my balcony that night with a beer in hand and watched the sunset. Phone in my lap. Then I sent 2 texts. To Chloe, house sold. You're free of the debt. Your kids deserve a better role model than you've been. I hope you figure that out before they start to resent you, too. To Caleb, you spent your whole life trying to be the favorite. All I wanted was peace. Now I have it. And you? You've got nothing left to steal. Neither of them replied. But the next day, a friend forwarded me a link to the episode of that podcast I'd been on. Apparently, it had gone viral. Comments flooded in. People sharing their own stories of family betrayal, of siblings who felt entitled, of toxic parents, twisted wills, and long overdue boundaries. It was like a collective exhale from people who finally felt seen. Someone even posted, "Whoever Ethan is in this story, thank you. I needed this." I didn't comment. I didn't reply. But I saved that post. Because that's what true resolution is, not flame and fury. It's walking away from the wreckage with your head held high, while the people who lit the match choke on the smoke. I'm done building bridges. Now I build walls. With windows. So I can watch the ones who tried to burn me fall apart from the outside. What kind of walls are you building in your life?